Cow pulled over the middle.
Yeah, because it doesn't have that big of a
And I'm the liaison guy, and
neutral space there in the middle.
Yeah, right.
They just kind of,
3 inches, and we don't.
Wait till they get that one at Rebarton and
Yeah,
Hunt.
a lot of snow
That'll
out
be a
here.
nightmare. That's a busy intersection for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't think that we have to pay when they come out, so I didn't want to come out if
Right.
they needed to, but it was getting pretty bad.
Yeah.
trying to draw
The perils of private roads, right?
Yeah. I didn't know it was private road when we flew in.
Most people don't.
Surprise.
Wait till it gets potholes and you get to pay to fix them.
I know that.
Did you get that email I sent you about that pothole?
So we're taken care of.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
not fixed yet. It's supposed to be fixed tonight.
Got it.
Because they won't do that during the day with
Got
traffic.
it. No, it's big. It's not a good one.
Where's it at?
It's right on, it's on 71, but it's right, it's almost like it feels like it's almost like an asphalt failure. It's right at where the Kell Road overpass, so if you're going south on 71, on the south side of that bridge, right in the middle lane,
Really?
it's every bit as big as this, probably bigger than this. And it's right where it abuts the concrete and the bridge overpass, so it's almost like something failed in the paving. I don't know. It's too new, it's brand new.
Everybody ready? Elliot? Good. Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order. If everyone would please rise for the invocation.
Who has the invocation tonight?
Mr. Penny?
I have it. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the residents, staff, and friends of Sycamore Township. And continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Everybody please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if Mr. Porter would note that all three trustees are present. The next item on the agenda, Tracy Kellums and I had a conversation with Dan Dieters from Energy Alliance today regarding the rebates that we are getting in the mail on debit cards. And I know there's a great deal of confusion, and so we asked Dan to come on about 2 hour notice to come to the meeting tonight. We appreciate you coming, Dan.
No problem. I had to come pretty far. We're Sycamore Township company, about 2 miles that way.
So I appreciate you coming, but if you could give us an update and kind of, there may be some questions from the board here.
That would be probably best.
Okay.
I'll just give you a quick status update, and then we'll just go
Okay.
from there. So about the end of August, early September last year, I think it was Trustee Weedman sent us an email about a resident that had a issue with his bill. And so we got to talking to him a little bit, and there was no reason that the issue should have been. So what had happened was Dynegy sent over the reduction in the rate to Duke, and their computers, along with Duke's, somehow didn't mash up, and the rate was never properly lowered. And that happened through about 3.5 months of last year. And had someone not said something to us, it probably would have taken a little bit longer. But we got into it. We found out that happened in 4 communities that Dynegy was servicing. It was Delhi, Reading, and Union Township, Claremont, along with Sycamore Township. We discovered approximately $125,000 in refunds that were owed to the residents of these communities. We spoke with Dynegy, asked them to give us a plan on how they were going to return the money to the folks. They came up with this plan about sending the gift cards out. And as you folks know, we don't send anything out to any communities without the administration seeing. So we sent the plan over here, got the thumbs up, send them out, and we...
When did you send it over? That was
it would have been...
November?
It would have been early November.
Yeah, okay.
When they came back to us. There was a little lead time, little give and take with Dynegy of what we wanted and
Okay.
what the letter should look like. And we sent the letter over here. We sent the credit card, the gift card notice over here.
Okay. So I did not see that at all. So apparently that was handled by our former administrator.
Probably. I mean, we send them out, and truthfully, I can't tell you if Delhi's administrator, Redding's, or Union's even said, okay, do it, this is okay. I mean,
Gotcha.
I wouldn't get too
Gotcha.
uptight about that. So Duke will not put a credit on the bill. So their system does not work like that. We even looked at trying to reduce the rate of those folks, but it's impossible to know how that would work, since there were summer months that they were reduced, and then there would be other usage months. It would be just impossible to calculate it. The easiest thing we thought was, let's just send these out and get folks their money as soon as possible, and they can use these cards because they're pretty convenient if you read through the letter. They're not super hard to understand. I know some people, there was one big error in that they stuck the card over the terms and conditions that showed that there was no fee to use the card. And we didn't see that initially because there was no card stuck to the letters that we were sent initially. So, but I'll get to that in one more second. There's a company that runs this program for these rebates for Dynegy, and I'll give you their number in one moment. So we hope folks would be able to conveniently use these cards, and that would be the end of it. People, in this day and age, there's no such thing as an honest mistake anymore. There's conspiracy theories, there's scams, there's all this stuff, and people are right to be on their toes about this stuff in the energy industry because there is rampant scams out there.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? We're getting calls every day from people,
Yeah.
so it's clear that there are people out there
oh
that
yeah,
are probably not very honest. And a lot of people, I think, perceive that this was maybe one of those deals.
and that's why we hope that folks will call us and we can explain it to them. But there is a number. This company is called North Lane, and I'll give you the number and I'll send it over to Mr. Kellums tomorrow because I just got it about a half hour ago. I didn't even know this. This is the clearinghouse company that handles all the cards, anything you want to do. It's North Lane. It's 877-483-3028. They can give you, if you spent your card, they can tell you that. They can, because it's all name and address and they have that all down. They can tell you the current balance on the card. If it's 35 cents, somebody might just toss it. Or they'll send you a check.
So they will send a check.
They will send you a check.
Okay.
So I spoke with them a couple hours ago, and they told me that if somebody, because sometimes we have folks that get these cards, and so someone had indicated to me that there's an expiration date on the cards. I don't know that there is. I didn't need, just because I didn't read it, and that's entirely possible.
I think it's June or July.
July, I believe.
Yeah. So at the end of June, what I'll do is I'll get a report from them.
Okay.
And say, okay, and then if push comes to shove, I'll say write them all a check. So we'll if people don't want to attack this thing on their own or call on their own, I'll make sure that we get settled. So let's see. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Hopefully that clears some things up. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I think the big problem is, again, we get so many calls constantly. We get people knocking on our doors constantly to switch to a different source, and I think so. It's kind of confusing for these people, for a lot of people, especially when they don't see that there's no fee underneath because this card's stuck to it, and or if they don't read all the way down in the letter.
Yep.
And so we've had a lot of people raise some questions about it, and I think it would probably be good for us to get this, Tracy, good to get this on our website, on the front page.
I'll put something together for you tomorrow, and
That'd be
something
great.
you can put up
Okay.
to make sure people understand, and to make sure that if they call somebody, they call us. Because that's our job, is to protect the residents from all this stuff and make sure that we're an advocate for them, just like we are for this board. And I'll make sure that not one person doesn't get their money. It's
When did the cards come out?
So they were mailed between the 15th of January and the 31st, and they were mailed in waves. And I'm not sure actually how that was because there were 4 communities. I don't know if they just took everybody's name alphabetically and sent them all out. or if they took them out by community. I don't really have that information. The guy I talked to today didn't have that kind of information for me. But they were sent out in the last 2 weeks, essentially.
Thanks for coming in to talk about this. I had reached out to Mr. Kellums yesterday, too, to see if he might be able to arrange for you or someone to come out
Yeah,
here. So I'm glad he
no
and Mr.
problem.
Weedman were able to coordinate on that with you today. And it's good to explain this. Social media in the township's lighting up over this because a lot of people are complaining they got this and they thought it was a bait and switch or slam type scam to try to get them to change.
I see that.
And I have to say, from the card I got, too, it came in an envelope labeled from Dynegy. The card's got an expiration date on it. And most of the cards people got show that the balance on the card is 0.
Correct.
Which, again, makes it look like a scam. And so people were concerned that they might have to sign up for this card. There's the notice on there about the fee. And as you said, the part about there not being a fee is kind of hidden away. So
Yeah.
it's been very confusing.
It was really
for our
hidden.
residents.
It was hidden under the card.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
Right, and so my concern, and you've addressed that already, is what happens when some of these cards have gotten thrown away or they go past the expiration date and people have tossed them out? If you're going to be monitoring the list to make sure once the cards expire, checks go out proactively, even if somebody doesn't call, I would suggest doing that. Then that way people will be made whole.
If we're allowed to do that, I'm going to make them do it. I'm certain that we will be.
Yeah.
But I had the same question you did. I said, somebody called our office and said, well, it has 0 balance on it. And I called somebody. I was like, well, how does that work? They said, well, you have to activate it to see the balance. Otherwise, it'd be like sending out cash.
It's true.
I think in hindsight, just sending checks probably would have been the best approach.
I don't know what the number is from a cost perspective for Dynegy. And when they presented their program, we've never had this happen before, and nobody objected. So I mean, hindsight now being 2020, I think we'll probably take a different tact next time if this ever happens, which I can't believe it would again.
Will you be able to actively monitor that rate changes go through when they're supposed to in the future?
We can monitor them now. The problem is we don't get the information ourselves for 60 days. So what happens is, since the utility is in charge of all the credit, we don't get any information until the meter's read, it's billed, and then the bill's either paid or not paid. So there's like so it's really 90 days because you've used 30 days of energy. They send the bill out, then you have 30 days to pay it, then they take their time paying us, and we don't see the number for almost 90 days. So it wouldn't have helped if we were looking at our material this time, but it's certainly going to help us to understand that next time we're going to make that phone call and say, hey, where are we on this? Because we have access to the utility also to see that, but we don't. It's just something that's never occurred before, and I don't think there was any malice in that they did that. I just think it was just somebody just screwed up.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great news that on the back end of it, come June or July, that you'll be able to, you and Dynegy will be able to track, and this was it Northmark Group, I think it was?
It's
North Lane.
North Lane. I thought it was North Lake, but it's North Lane.
We'll be able to track and see, who's redeemed their cards, which have gone, unactivated or what have you, and can issue
Yeah.
checks. Because I would be almost positive that either I or my husband probably threw ours out, because to be honest with you, thanks to the benefit of the aggregation program that Sycamore Township has, when we get those unsolicited offers, we don't even open them.
Yeah.
We just toss them. We don't even open them.
I get it.
Which I'm sure that probably a lot of folks did. So, it's good to know that hopefully at the end, that there's nothing nefarious in activating the cards, but
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, there'll be some tracking that we might be able to make whole some of those folks that
So I don't
probably did what we did.
and I don't know what I'm going to be able to do come June or July if people don't cash the check.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I
You
certainly.
mean after the check is,
Yeah,
if
if they
a
send
subsequent
check out,
check is
I mean,
sent, there's nothing you can do
There's
about
nothing
it.
you can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that.
I don't think Dynegy should get to keep the money.
Well, state law actually governs what has to happen then. I think it has to be paid into an unclaimed.
It probably does.
It
It
does go
probably
into
does.
an unclaimed fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that won't be our deal. That'll be North Lane's deal at that point.
I know I downloaded the North Lane app and put my card number in, and it told me how much was on the card.
Nice.
Good.
Nice.
Okay. Any other questions?
Figure that out.
No, but thank you for coming in.
It
to
was on the
explain it.
paperwork that came with the card.
He read it, though.
Which is probably 17 more steps
You
than
can't
we
be
did in our
expected to
house.
have me read that stuff.
Dan, thanks, buddy.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, we are going to go into executive session to adjourn, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn into executive session with Township Law Director as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the employment of a public employee or official and as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G3 to discuss pending and imminent litigation. You have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman,
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman.
Aye.
Mr. Weaver, who do you want back there? Everybody?
Let's see, Porter. Do we need the chief also?
Yes.
Yep.
Took me longer to get in my chair than anybody else too.
Too much ice in the Yeti.
Simple enough. Okay, we are back from executive session at 8:10. Mr. Porter, would you do the roll, please?
Mr. James,
I'm here.
Mr. Weedman,
Present.
Ms. Schwab.
Here.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from January 18th public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes from the January 18th, 2022 public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Any corrections? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Ms. Schwab.
Aye.
Next item is the approval of minutes from the trustee meeting on on January 18th. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the January 18th, 2022 trustees meeting minutes.
I second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Any corrections? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Ms. Schwab.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any?
No, sir. No one signed in.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Sheriff Patrol report. Sergeant?
We have nothing major to report this week.
Stuck around for that?
Yeah, I know, right?
I said something big.
I could have given that report for you.
Fortunately, no, nothing big.
Thank you, good night. You could have left us a Post-it note or something.
Any questions? Next item on the agenda, EMS and fire report. Chief?
I just got a email from Kevin Robbins at 5 o'clock today that he has completed the drawings for the HVA system up north, and he's requesting to meet with Tracy and myself and Tim to go over the drawings and continue on. So I'll get with you tomorrow
All right.
on that. So that's a good thing. The other thing is I did the final audit for the CARES Act money that we used in 2021, and we overspent by $23. So I was able to balance that audit, and it came out to zero as far as they're concerned.
What was the total on that, Chief? You know.
I don't like the sound of
He
that.
said in the public meeting.
Well, we had one invoice that was over 23, so I just reported how much we spent, because they don't care if we overspend. If we underspend, then we have to give it back to them.
So what did we get in CARES money?
That was, gosh, what was that? million or something. I can't remember. It was back in
was
May of
2 years ago.
Yeah, May of 21. It was like 1.3 million or something
1.3,
like that. I can email you the exact number. I got it on my computer. But we had to do quarterly audits, and the final one was the big one because it had to pan out, so it did. So the other thing I have is that we have a data collection audit that we have to partake in for Medicare. That's for the whole year of 2022, and we have to do our report in May of 2023. And this is a 46-page report of description of what they need, and it goes everywhere from reporting run volume, the organization, how it's set up, staffing cost, facility cost, vehicle cost, equipment and supply cost, and revenue. And everything has to be broke down. It's going to be very labor intensive. I've got 3 or 4 of us working on it, and I'm creating a database now to record every invoice, every cost that we do that's toward this, so when we get ready to report it, we can itemize it out to how we do it.
That's good.
And,
We're doing that. That's great.
And I can't, not to bring up a sore subject, but I can't thank you enough for going back to Bucks, because Bucks will allow me to itemize this stuff out the way we need it, that I would have never got out UAN. The reason why, because of that, because UAN used 2 generic of account titles, so you can't go in and look at
Gotcha.
certain accounts by how you spend it. So with Bucks, I'll be able to do that, and this is going to be a year-long function, so it's going to be quite in depth. And if we don't do it, then we lose a percentage of Medicare money. So we'll get it done.
Good.
That's all I have.
Okay, any questions? Roads and maintenance, recreation report.
Well, on roads, the Larchview Plainfield project continues. They're continuing to, they actually have half the water main in. It is capped and charged with water. They're doing a pressure test on that and moving on and putting the main in on the other half. So at this rate, we'll be ready to go full construction in the spring, as soon as the weather changes. Other than that, our guys are getting ready for Thursday. They're all excited about no sleep for 2 days. And so we will be working in 12-hour shifts, because this seems like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think it is.
Will we be able to pre-treat it all with the current forecast?
Nope, not with all the rain
It's going
first.
to get too much rain.
Yep. So the problem is going to be, we're expecting ice first,
Yep.
which always makes it a bear to clean the streets. But they'll handle it. They'll do a good job as always.
Okay. Anything on recreation?
No.
Okay. Any questions? Planning and zoning?
I'll try and be brief tonight. We do have one public nuisance resolution. This is for 11903 4th Avenue. I'm going to show you some pictures real quick. This was generated from neighborhood complaints. Whether it's a owner-occupied or rental is unknown, and we did not receive any response from the property owner. But essentially, it's the front yard, side yard, rear yard. We have a lot of junk trash and debris on this site. So unless there's any questions about these pictures, I'd like to read the resolution to you. So I have a resolution providing for and authorizing removal of vegetation, garbage, refuse, and other debris, and declaring a nuisance for the property located at 11903 4th Avenue, Sycamore Township, Ohio, 45249.
I move that we approve the resolution which was just introduced.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Ms. Schweben?
Aye.
Is that it?
Just some very quick updates for you. We'll be brief. We do have a zoning commission meeting on the 14th of this month. That is going to be for Tire Discounter on Kenwood Road. Tire Discounter bought the Graders location, the old Graders location. They're proposing to consolidate that site, raise both buildings, and develop an entirely new building on that site. So this will be coming in front of zoning commission. That is a PUD2, so it will be in front of this board at a later date. Okay. The only other thing I have is just a very brief update on Reading Road. Both properties, the Drake and the Carousel, have been secured by contractors for the port. The buildings themselves have been very well secured, boarded up. There's still, there's certainly pedestrian access to the site still, but
Is that it?
yeah, they did.
The building looks good.
They did a better job on some areas than others. It's my understanding that they've worked out an agreement with the sheriff's department that there's going to be regular patrols in the area. If there is any damage to their plywood, they'll send crews out to take care of that. But they've blocked vehicular access through the the actual driveways to try and limit any dumping while they go through their environmental approvals to do demo. No updates on a date for that. This is the rear of the Drake next to the office.
Yes.
So the office actually owns the parking lot, so that's been cleaned up, and then just the back of the Drake's been blocked off. So that's all I have on that. And unless there's any questions for me, that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions?
I've noticed construction has picked up dramatically on Kugler Mill Road with the new houses. Do you have any update from the developer on what's going on there?
They are trying to develop the first site. They've started offloading equipment. We're having some issues with them right now. Trying to offload equipment onto the roadway, pulling mud and debris off their side onto our new pavement. They've been admonished for that, and they're going to have to put better measures in place. Whether they have a gravel and a cleaning station, I don't know, but it's not going to be tolerated.
Yeah, we have a lot of money in that road.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It cannot go on.
Yep. There was a concern from the developer about the placement of sidewalks, but that's a county subdivision regulation that they the developer submitted and agreed to. So the sidewalk's going to go where they have proposed that it would go, and county approved.
Yep.
So and it's a standard subdivision detail for the county. So it's designed to county spec. So that's all I have.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Law Director report. Claire?
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Administrator report. Mr. Kellums.
The first thing I wanted to talk about was when we went to Columbus for the OTA. Heard a lot about ARP funds, and there is now a new ruling that you can claim $10 million in loss of revenue without documentation. Obviously, there's been a lot of smaller townships that aren't going to have $10 million in loss of revenue, but that's what you're allowed to claim, and that those funds can basically be used for anything now except paying off loans and interest. Other than that, it's anything to do with government services. So that is good news, because at first nobody was clear on what you could use it for, and so that's why it's just been sitting.
And we're looking at about 2.1 million in the two tranches, aren't we, in terms of the payments
Yes,
we'll be getting for that?
that's correct.
Not 10 million, unfortunately, but
No, not.
yeah.
The 2.1 is good. So that's all good news, because
The OTA put out a couple of sample resolutions.
yes,
They recommend, I think they just came out within the last day or two.
they just came, today.
So
I
happens I
think.
did an opinion letter on the subject today, but you need to put in the resolution that you're claiming the standard allowance, the
Okay.
$10 million, and then you can replace any government services with that, whatever you get.
Okay.
The
So-
rule's
so
not
we may
effective
want
until early
Larry-
April, though, right?
Well, no, the rule goes into effect April first, but they're not, there's gonna be a look back, so if you do it before then, they're not going to, they're not gonna audit you.
Yeah, so that original resolution can be done now. And then, as you spend money, you would do another resolution every time you spend.
Okay, so we probably need to get that for the next meeting.
Yes,
This is the American
Do you want-
Rescue Fund.
yes. So do you want Mr. Barbier to put that
Yes.
together for the next meeting?
I will.
Let me sure change that. And just for the record, but for being able to claim a deemed loss of up to $10 million, we really haven't had a true revenue loss.
One of our, in one of our,
coronavirus.
one of our JEDs we do.
Yeah, but for the most part, we've done pretty well, which
We have
is not a
done
little
well.
surprising.
But
Yeah.
we also have potential exposure on refunds and things like that.
Oh, sure.
So the net number, we don't really know yet.
Yeah,
It's been better than we all expected going in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We were about 140,000 low on EMS revenue from COVID.
All in all, that's not bad.
That's right. Okay, next, as you can see, I have Parks Advisory Committee and Citizen Finance Committee on here. I wanted to put them all, both on here, because I just have a feeling that these are supposed to be trustee advisory committees, and I feel that they're kind of going off on their own direction, and not exactly being an advisory committee to the trustees. So I want to bring this to you. I know I sent an email around that you all saw, about some emails that went out. I think that one of the committees, especially let's start with the Parks Committee, does not seem to be functioning well. Emails going around that are slanderous towards employees and trustees, along with other board members, and I don't think that should be tolerated. We would not put up with that from one of our employees, and if you're on a committee representing this township, I don't think that's the way that you should be acting and talking to our employees. The chairperson is Jason Petty, who is our Parks and Public Spaces supervisor. This all came around with people being mad about the agenda. He is the chairperson. He is the one that established the agenda. He sent out an email, said there wasn't an agenda, and got all kinds of flack back, and you saw some of the responses. So I just think that we may want to talk about this, but I think this committee's not doing exactly what we pictured a committee to do. I mean, we don't need a committee that tells us every step we need to take and what maintenance we need to do in the parks and on all. We know what maintenance we need to do. I think we need more really what we need is like a special events committee. That's what we basically had with our other park committee. They helped with the festival, they helped with 5K run when we did that. They helped with the car show, Luminaria.
You're talking about active participation.
We need people with active participation that are willing to help, not just ideas. So that's my opinion.
Well, we put together the Parks Committee to generate ideas from the volunteers on the committee. They're not, I will point out, they're not there to represent the township to others. They are there to be members of the township providing ideas to us. And we've had good and bad moments we've seen in that. I think the committee has come up with some good ideas in doing some things last year with the movies in the park activities, some of the concerts we had. Some committee members were instrumental in making those things happen.
Exactly, that's special events, exactly.
Yeah. So re-envisioning how the committee works isn't necessarily a bad idea. I would agree. There's drama on every committee, I guess. I know the recent email you're talking about, I think, concerned that I understand there had been a practice where Mr. Petty would ask the committee members if they had anything for the agenda, and apparently, for whatever reason, that didn't happen this time. I know Mr. Petty works really hard, though, for what he's doing with the committee, too, and for our parks, and does a very good job. So, yeah, maybe moving toward a special events thing may be workable. I don't know. The important thing is to get the advice in and to get input from residents and from people who have a passion for parks and recreation activities, who can come up with some ideas we don't come up with on our own.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And Mr. Petty has interviewed several more people that he's very excited about also.
So that's something to consider. I don't know if that's something the board wants to take action on right away, but it's good for you to put it on everybody's radar, and maybe we can hear from some of the members of the committee or Mr. Petty about a vision for making it work better. Do you guys have thoughts as to that?
Yeah, I think that from the advice of Jason, I think that we need to dissolve the group. I asked our law director to prepare a resolution dissolving the group tonight and for our consideration. And I think that it would be much better to have. I would certainly like to thank everybody who served on that Park Advisory Committee. And I think we should send them a letter thanking them for their service and encouraging them to apply to the new group, which is more of an events-driven committee, and let Jason interview those people and try to put together what he thinks is the best group to move forward. So.
And some of this could have been our fault. Maybe we didn't give proper direction.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, a couple of comments. Number one, I think community involvement is good and it's important. I just served on a township committee for the last few years. It was an honor and privilege to do so, and I think that anyone that serves on or is asked to serve or invited to serve on one of our township committees should consider it as such, and I think there should be a minimum standard of conduct that folks should be expected to treat one another, fellow committee members, with respect. They should be expected to treat staff members that are supervising that committee with a level of respect. I think they should be committed to working in a collaborative fashion with their fellow committee members. I think those are some very minimal thresholds that committee members, appointed committee members who are representing the township should be expected to uphold. Again, it's an honor and a privilege to serve. And I think community involvement is great, but I think those are some very minimum qualifications that and commitments that committee members should be making. Number two, I think to your point, Tracy and Mr. Kellums, that perhaps some of it is on us, that if we're not providing good guidance and focus and giving that committee some good direction on where to focus their comments, input, and effort, things can go awry. So some of that may be on us as a township to make certain that we are structuring those committees in a fashion that they can be productive and can contribute in a valuable fashion towards advancing the township. So it sounds to me like there's, I don't know if, Tom, did I hear a motion to dissolve and reconstitute?
You haven't, but I will make a motion to do so. And I think our law director has a resolution stating such.
Tracy, do you have the resolution?
I do not.
I think I have a copy here.
This is a resolution to dissolve the Sycamore Township Parks Advisory Committee. That's the title.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, this is a bit of a surprise, unnecessarily so, especially if you had requested a resolution be drafted. I'd like to read it, frankly, before we vote on this thing. Looks short, so that shouldn't take very long. I'd appreciate it if things like this would be distributed in advance and there'd be some alert from the administrator, as has been past practice, as to when things like this are going to come up. We certainly don't need to rush through this either. So I'll take a moment to read this.
While he's reading, one thing I would like to say about committees is there's been a push lately by the courts to apply the sunshine laws to these committees. So if you have committees that are not being, and the meetings are not being attended by trustees, or they're acting more on their own away from the trustees, there's more of a chance that the sunshine law is going to be violated. There's a case in our Court of Appeals here in the First District right now where a trial court judge said that a committee had violated the open meetings law by not posting notice of their meetings and not having minutes, when all they were really doing was they were formed to be an advisory committee. They weren't supposed to make any decisions. They didn't, in fact, make any decisions, which should not have seemed like they were a deliberative body. But the trial court judge at least said that they were violating the Sunshine Law. So that's a risk that needs to be taken. And if these committees are created in the future, it needs to be they need to be carefully advised that they have to comply with the Sunshine Law.
That's been the cause of some of the friction, I think, in this Parks Committee, actually, also is disagreements over that. We've had discussions in our prior meetings in the fall about that, and some of the members have been vocal about wanting to follow those rules, and others haven't, I think, so.
Well, we'll know
Yeah.
pretty soon what the First Appellate District has to say about it, but right now, that's something to be careful about.
I would just
And
comment.
we have been following those.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the committee's been making a practice to try to do that, certainly. There have been meeting times changed, but there have been notices
Correct.
given even as to that.
Correct.
And Mr. Desai addressed that in the meeting, that we've been compliant with what the law required as to that previously. Well, without a replacement plan in place, my view is, I don't think we need to hurry through this. So I don't know that it's something we need to adopt tonight, frankly. And I think we should look at getting the replacement plan for the committee in place too. There's not a meeting scheduled for this month, if I understand right, is there, Mr. Kelley?
There is not.
So
There is.
again, there's not a rush. There's a little bit of time for consideration for this and to get some public input. So my recommendation would be to wait, but if you want to bring it to a vote, that's your prerogative as chairman.
Okay, any other comments? Look, I think we all received the copies of the emails that were going around from at least one board member, one committee member, and quite frankly, if that was my employee, I would terminate them on the spot. And so, I think this is an opportunity for a fresh outlook on this. I think is important for the township, and so I do support the resolution. So if there's no other questions or comments, Mr. Porter, will you take the roll, please?
Mr. James?
I'm not in a hurry, so I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegler?
Aye.
Okay.
And then the other one is the Citizen Finance Committee. Mr. James has been to the meetings lately. I wasn't at them last year. Obviously, Mr. Warwick was the one running those meetings. That is supposed to also be a citizen, a trustee advisory committee of residents. So, I just had some questions about that as far as the way they're heading. And, my opinion all along has been, I think it's a great committee to have, but I think it should be more along advising trustees on things such as bonds, levies, TIFs, special projects, not as much reviewing month-to-month finances and looking over the fiscal office shoulder. But that's my opinion, and I wanted to bring that to you also. Pardon my voice, but I was doing a lot of screaming, so
Good day.
At the Bengals game. Yeah.
I'm losing it.
The committee has been looking at those things, is my understanding in the past, though, and has it on their planned agenda for this year to continue looking at those things. Is that incorrect?
Which things? You're talking about
Advising as to bonds, as to investment policies, which they made a recommendation, which Mr. Porter agreed with.
Yes.
And we made a
Yes, they
change
did.
as to that, for example. They have plans to look at our TIFs and to advise us as to recommendations as to those going forward, to assist in analyzing proposed new TIFs or modifications to TIFs, one of which I understand will be coming before us pretty soon if that developer moves ahead with whatever it is they want to propose now. So I think the committee is very helpful as to that. It's composed of professionals who, as you heard one of them noted the other day, he didn't even vote in the last election. I don't think he knew who was running. That's not his concern. He's there to assist his township with finances. So it's certainly not a political body by any means. I hope Mr. Porter has found it helpful. I know he had been attending many of the meetings, although he was not at the last one. So I think it's useful for them to continue on. If we want to have them come in and we have a discussion with them in a meeting as to ideas for them going forward and how they can be helpful, I think that's certainly a good thing. But are you proposing disbanding?
I think Mr. Porter should be more involved in the committee also, myself.
I think he should too.
Mr. Porter, any comments?
Well, as I think the board knows, I was not for the committee in the very beginning. I was against it. I think it was constituted for a very specific purpose, which they achieved, and then when they were being developed, I asked around at various other communities, did they have one? Most of them did not. And the ones that did have them said they were constituted to advise the board on whether or not that a levy made sense or not. As fiscal officer, I'm audited every year by the state auditor, and I think it really makes it a burden on the fiscal officer really to have to answer to more than one auditor. And that's what kind of how I viewed them as operating. It's like a second auditor on what I did. So I was never for it. I tried to cooperate and tried to make the best of the situation that I wasn't for in the beginning. So, I think I think it was constituted for political purposes. If you want to keep it, I would recommend that maybe be reconstituted with maybe a different makeup. But that's up to the board.
Well, I think some of my, I'll go back to what I said as it relates to the parks discussion. I think these committees are great, and I think that the citizen involvement can bring a lot of outside expertise on specific topics when there is good guidance and direction as far as what we as a township are asking them to do. And I'm not certain we have that with the finance committee currently. I'm not sure that we have a good direction. I'm not sure they're getting good direction from the township on a very focused, whether it's one area of focus or multiple areas of focus on what exactly it is that we want them to do, and what they can help us with. If they're doing duplicative things that are already being done by others, then I don't know that that's the best use of their time, and maybe that's not the right expertise that we need. I think that there is great value in citizen participation. I've served on the committees, and I think we benefited from Mr. Miller's expertise in keeping us focused on what our end goal and objective was, what our outcome was, what the desired outcome was. We didn't agree always along the way. We had robust discussion. We treated one another with respect, but we knew why we were gathered and what we were to be working towards. And I get the sense that some of these are just sort of ad hoc groups that get together and decide what they're going to talk about without a great deal of focus. And I think some of that is incumbent on us as a township to provide some good focus so that these committees can provide us with some real value, valued product at the end of the day. And I don't know that that's what we've got right now. That concerns me.
May I ask, what do you base that opinion on? You haven't been to a finance committee meeting, have you? Is this based on what you've been told by Mr. Porter, who dislikes the
No,
committee?
not at all. Not at all. I think I've gotten calls from folks on the finance committee. They have called me. I have watched some of the reports that they have provided. And I don't know that they're not, maybe they're helpful, maybe they're not, but some of them seem duplicative to me, that is work that's being done by others.
They're setting their own.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but who?
Staff.
Well, staff. I mean, if we're and if we're having an audit already, and now we want to re-audit, if we have staff that are producing financial reports that are being vetted not only by our fiscal officer and then ultimately by we as trustees that are looking at checks that are going out, and then ultimately things are audited at the end of the, and at the end of the period, then I'm not sure that we need yet another group of 5 to do that again. I think the group's activities could be better focused on meaningful activities that are additive to what we do, not necessarily duplicative, if that helps.
Yeah, and frankly, they're setting their agenda. The trustees are not setting the agenda. I mean, I've been to several meetings, and the chairman, Chris, sets the agenda. And they vote on it, and they decide that that's what their agenda is going to be. You guys aren't setting their agenda.
We are not giving them any guidance as it relates
Right.
to an agenda. That's correct.
I mean,
And that's
the
that
way
will
it-
need to change.
And I think, I mean, you guys know what my opinion was. Their agenda was to provide cover for switching the accounting system, and they very effectively did that. But that's why I knew that was what they were going to do from the beginning. And that's what
You're
they did.
incorrect, but I know that's your opinion.
Well,
What we have here-
That's also my opinion.
I understand that. What we have here is a group of very capable professional residents who have an interest in the township, who want to assist us in what we're doing and keep an eye on what we're doing for the residents, and to keep an eye on Mr. Porter and our staff as to what's going. They've made some valuable recommendations. They have others to make. You can laugh, Mr. Weedman, why don't you go to one of their meetings?
Yes, so I don't need to go because the recommendation was we switch to UAN, and that wasn't a very valuable
That was
contribution.
one of the many recommendations they've made. They've also recommended that in moving back to bucks, we should make sure we have some of the audit controls in place that we didn't have before, because it is a bad idea to allow department heads to be able to create vendors in a system, for example, because that opens the system up to potential fraud. It's just not a good practice. They can make some recommendations as to that. These are financial professionals, CFOs and so forth, who can offer us that input, make recommendations, and keep an eye on us, and help us keep an eye on our staff, and on Mr. Porter, and him on us. We 3 have a fiduciary duty to make sure the township money is being managed and spent properly and kept secure, and that the taxpayers aren't being shafted somehow here in that process.
Do we have record that they have been?
Yeah.
We don't.
Have they?
But we don't have a record they haven't been, is the thing. It's useful to have extra eyes on that, because it keeps us accountable too. Scooby-Doo's coming to mind for some reason, with someone saying, I would have gotten away with it except for those meddling kids. Well, the Finance Committee perhaps is our meddling kids. Sorry, weird thought.
Yes, sir.
What is the matter with having some capable professional residents looking at what's going on? And what is the burden to us in having that happen and encouraging them to do it, as opposed to the benefit to the township overall in having some extra accountability there to look at what's going on? Because we are a massive financial operation, tens of millions of dollars moving through this township.
And I think that committee could bring some real value in some of those areas. I absolutely agree.
Then let's not slash their throats,
And I
let's give them
think-
some guidance.
I think we should, and I think some of that guidance should come from whoever our new township administrator is, and what he or she deems might be additive and would be valuable assistance.
Why not let the committee roll along until then, and then let them meet with the new administrator, and let's see what happens?
Well, if there's nobody guiding them, then they're making their own agenda and they're running staff around.
Their chairman has run larger operations than our township is in the
Yeah,
past.
but why
So-
doesn't he run for trustee or fiscal
Because he's
officer?
not politically motivated. He just wants to keep an eye on the taxpayer dollars.
So I'd like to just weigh in on this, because I have not had an opportunity to speak yet on this issue, and that is, it's very public knowledge that I voted no for this group. I voted no for multiple reasons. Number one, I did think it was a political group, and during the discussion about forming the Citizen Finance Committee, it was suggested by you, Mr. James, that we should not have political appointments to these types of committees. And so, I think we did have political appointments to this committee, number one.
Who?
Well, Mr. Ginn, number one. Mr. Ginn, you started out by saying we should have residents on this committee. Mr. Ginn has been a resident of Broward County, Florida since 1993. 1993, he started voting in Broward County. He is not a legal resident of Sycamore Township, yet he's on our committee. And I don't know if that's because he gave you a contribution of $9,068 to your campaign, and he gave $5,750 to Mr. LaBarbera, and you were the two that made the decision to put him on. I don't really know if that's true or that's not true.
That's
But it
not
looks-
true. It's
but it-
because he's the
let me
treasurer of the
finish.
Sturbridge Homeowners
Let me
Association.
finish.
You made an accusation
Let me
here.
finish, let me finish.
go right
I don't
ahead,
know if
big
it's
boy.
true or it's not true, but the fact of the matter, it doesn't look good when you had suggested that that we did not want political appointments to this board. It did not look good. But he's not even a resident of Sycamore Township, and we have him as one of 5 members on our resident finance committee that's made up of 3 people from Sturbridge. Let me finish. 3 people from Sturbridge, another person from Kenwood, and 1 other person from the north. And one of the things I said when this committee was formed was, why are we rushing to judgment so quick? I want equal distribution of representation in our township. 40% of our residents live in Dillonvale, yet we have nobody on that finance committee from Dillonvale, and we have 3 people from one neighborhood on this committee. So I just, the question of, A, you wanting residents, and we have at least 1 person that's not a resident. Number 2, you don't want any political appointments when it's certainly, look, that's $15,000. If that isn't a political appointment, I can't figure out how to define a political appointment. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Because it doesn't look good. When we talk about transparency, it doesn't look good to our residents when we're putting guys like this who aren't even residents on a resident committee, okay? So my recommendation, and I asked our law director to draw up a resolution to dissolve the Citizen Finance Committee. I think a Citizen Finance Committee is great. I think we should have one. I think we should have good, solid distribution of representation on that board. My recommendation would be that we have 2 from Kenwood, 2 from the north, 2 from Dillonvale as a minimum of a board of 7, and our fiscal officer would be the chairman of this group. And so there was a resolution, and I'd be happy to have you take a look at it, because I just got that today, and I asked our law director to draw it up. And it's going to be very simple, because section 1 is the same as the other committee. And I'm going to make you can go ahead and look at it, and then I'll have Mr. Barbier read the resolution.
Let me just note, Mr. Ginn is a resident of the township. He's not a full year resident of the township and doesn't vote here. He votes in Florida. But he spends about half the year here and half the year there. He's a volunteer with Indian Hill Schools as well. He owns a property in the Sturbridge neighborhood where he lives. He owns another property on Kenwood Road as well, which family members reside in, and other properties in the township. It's ridiculous to keep saying he's not a resident. Also, when we set up the committee, the goal was to get the committee in place, and I recall your concern at the time about not having residents from Dillonvale on the committee. And I shared your concern, if you recall, and I encouraged you to use your very large email mailing list and contact list that you have to find some people from there to add them to the committee, because it didn't need to be a fixed number of members as then constituted. And 2 years on, that still hasn't happened. So I'd love to have people from Dillonvale and from other parts of the township on the committee too. Just wanted to correct those things. So
Okay,
go ahead, I'll read
so
those.
I would recommend that we advertise for a new Citizen Finance Committee. I would recommend that the trustees develop the bylaws with the help of our law director. And again, I think that the distribution of representation throughout the township is important. I will make note that we did have what we found in our former administrator's files was an application to the Citizen Finance Committee by a female that lives in Dillonvale, but I never heard of it. I never heard that we ever got anything from anybody in Dillonvale. And the point that you made during that meeting was, if we have somebody from Dillonville, we'll put them on the committee. Well, maybe there's some legitimacy to the fact that Mr. Porter has suggested that this was a committee driven to do one simple thing, and that was it, and it was political. And whether it is or it isn't, I think, for the record, I think a citizen finance committee is important for our township. I think we should reestablish one that has better representation, that represents all of the areas of our township, not just one neighborhood. And so with that, Larry.
Title of this resolution is a resolution to dissolve the Sycamore Township Finance Committee.
I'll make a motion.
I'd second that motion. I'd just like to remind folks that by dissolving these and once we reconstitute these committees, which I think is very important, that those that have served previously are certainly welcome to reapply.
Absolutely.
I think, there are members of those committees that undoubtedly will bring skills and abilities to the focus direction of these new committees. So I second that motion.
I totally agree with that.
I will add, please send me that resume you got. I'd like to see that, Tom.
I don't have it, but I think our administrator can get that for you.
Great. We were all at the Ohio Township Association conference last week, going to different educational sessions, and I don't know if any of you went to the Understanding the Budget session. It was kind of dry. I think I went to it last time I was up there too, but one of the things I pointed out this time, like I point out every time, is that there are very important duties that we as trustees have in addition to the fiscal officer's duties in the township. One of those duties is monitoring of the budget. This is from the state auditor's office, by the way. They say, who should review monthly financial reports? Trustees, the finance committee. Oh, I guess they do think people should have one. Fiscal officer and department heads. Trustees should be reviewing that every month, though, and what we should be monitoring every month in monitoring the budget would be estimated revenues versus actual receipts, estimated resources versus appropriations, appropriations versus expenditures, outstanding purchase orders, contracts, and encumbrances, fund cash and unencumbered cash balances. We're supposed to be looking at line items and all of these reports that we really weren't historically getting until we had a finance committee in place who was also looking at this, and we had the other accounting system in place. So I hope going forward we're going to be having the opportunity to review these things, because currently that doesn't really happen in these meetings. We get a stack of checks and a list of purchase orders, but until Mr. Warwick had formulated those reports, we were comparing month to month, year over year, and so forth, and asking us to sign off on it, by the way, which I was typically signing off and returning to him. We weren't getting that. So it is important that we get that, whether it's the finance committee helping us look at that or someone else. Mr. Porter, we need those reports every month. I hope that's going to be an agenda item going forward. So my comment is, I think this is premature to dissolve the committee. I think this is political in nature, and there's a lot of drama going on when basically it comes down to, we don't want those people looking at our books. Is that what it is? I hope that's not it.
That's definitely not the case. I think your accusations are baloney. I think we just both got done saying we think a citizen finance committee is an important
and I'm happy to hear that.
Absolutely.
Well, this is the third time I said it here tonight, so I'm glad you're happy with that. But the fact of the matter is, we both said we think a citizen finance committee is important for our township. To suggest that we, in your last comment, that we don't like people looking at the books is a bunch of baloney.
Just not these.
You know it. You know it.
Just not.
I suspect
your political appointments.
I suspect some of these folks will probably ultimately end up
I agree.
being on a reconstituted committee.
Totally agree.
It would not surprise me in the least.
Well, that's good.
I think that's great.
That's promising.
Any other discussion? Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
No.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Ms. Schwick?
Aye.
Okay. We have a resolution to transfer funds, reconcile budgets and appropriations.
So a resolution authorizing director to transfer funds to reconcile budgets and appropriations and dispensing with the second reading. So this is to transfer $1 million from the Central JEDS Fund to the Fire Fund. This has already been appropriated, but it has not been transferred.
Okay. We have a motion?
I move we approve the resolution as presented.
I will second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Ms. Schwick?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the fiscal officer report.
Well, I have purchase orders.
I'm sorry, purchase over 5,000, you're correct. We have
So
in front of
the first one I have here is for street sweeper, crosswind, one dual. If you remember, we talked about this. This is something that we are doing with a joint purchase with Sims Township, and this is to Jack Dehaney Company for $131,384.50, and this is coming out of the Duke TIF. Do you want to do these one at a
Let's
time?
do them all together. Read them all.
Second one I have here is to BPS Heating and Cooling, and this is for Station 92, new furnace. Station 92 had a furnace go out. It was the last original one, so it's, Chief, 29 years old, I think.
Yeah.
So we definitely got our money's worth out of this one. And this is to BPS Heating and Cooling for $5,400, and this is coming out of the Sycamore Center TIF. And another one for, this is to Bramble Mower Service. This is for 2 mowers for the maintenance department. This is also coming out of the Duke TIF, and this is for $29,758.
Is this a replacement piece of equipment, or is this a new piece of equipment? Replacement.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the last one is for the Hamlet County Sheriff. This is for this year's contract. Comes out of their contracts, out of their fund, $2,300,000.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
I move we approve purchase order numbers 22-187, -192, -193, and -194, which are those that Mr. Kellums just read.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Ms. Schweber?
Aye.
Okay, now we have fiscal officer report.
Yes, we had cash receipts of $118,748.89, and we had disbursements of $841,230.38. A complete listing of the receipts and disbursements is available in the packet.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Ms. Schweber?
Aye.
Okay, next item up is trustee comments. Tracy?
I certainly want to thank our folks in Mr. Kellum's department for their work the last snowfall and their impending work tomorrow. I will tell you, with the snow last Friday, it was interesting to watch some of our county and state roads not quite clear, and my neighborhood was clear as a bell. So thank you to Mr. Kellums and his staff for their hard work.
I will pass that along.
Much appreciated.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I'll go next. The Ohio Legislature in June of 1998 passed a House Bill 652 declaring February 1st each year as Ohio Township Day in Ohio. So I want to wish all our staff and our residents a happy Township Day here today on February 1st. In Ohio, there are 1,308 townships representing about 35% of the population in Ohio. Last week, many of us attended the Ohio Township Association Conference in Columbus, and along with some had some great breakout sessions. I think there were a lot of, Mr. James had suggested he went to one on budget, so we had a lot of great breakout sessions. I participated along with Trustee Tracy and Administrator Tracy. I got to get the find these in a legislative meeting in the Capitol with the Southwest Ohio State legislators, which allowed us to get some updated information on pending legislation affecting townships in Ohio. This afternoon at 4:30, I had a call with the National Weather Service out of Wilmington. I'm on the board of the EMA Homeland Security, and we get these briefings pretty regularly. But At 4:30, they were estimating there would be about 2 to 3 inches of snow tomorrow and about 0.29 inches of ice in Hamilton County overnight Wednesday and into Thursday. They're also calling for high winds, which makes above-ground wires with ice especially vulnerable. I did also speak with somebody at Duke today, and they're anticipating outages all over Hamilton County tomorrow night and into Thursday. They've called in 300 line workers and damage assessors to supplement the local crew in anticipation of some of the severe weather coming up. I hope everybody stays home and hunkers down for the upcoming storm. Just a reminder that you should remove all cars from the street so our crew can get an opportunity to clear the streets, and that's all I have.
I'll add a few things. Happy Township Day, as Mr. Weedman said. Politics and different opinions can sometimes cause people to get testy or have heated disagreements over things. I do want the public to know that we're all, in our own way, working for what we think is best for the township. We don't always agree on what needs to happen, but in the end, we all work for you. We'd like to hear from any of you out there. Let us know what you think as to what's going on in the township and how we can work better for you. Tracy, thanks to your snow crew the other day for the surprise work they had to do and for the onslaught they're going to have in a few days. Yeah, Tom gave us the weather
Those
forecast
3 inches
here.
of flurries that we had last Friday.
Yeah, how about that? Really big fat flurries. Yeah. So they do a great job, as everyone said here. I'd like to thank the members of the Parks Advisory Committee and of the Citizens Finance Committee for the work you've done and hopefully will apply to continue to do. I look forward to your advice, whether you're on the committee or not, and I hope you'll continue to be interested in the township and keep an eye on what we're doing so that you can advise us and the public as to that and make sure that we're doing the best we can with the taxpayers' money here, certainly. And finally, Who Day, go Bengals. It's really exciting to have the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And so I know everybody's excited about that. And we're looking forward to a Super Bowl victory. And maybe we can then declare Joe Burrow Day here in the township. So thank you very much.
Okay. Announcement changes. Bid opening is for the 2022 road improvement program is Friday, February 11th at 10 a.m. right here in the Township building. And you can check our schedule, meetings and events on our calendar on our website. If there's no other business to attend to tonight, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Where